Effective immediately, all high-stakes poker professionals have been banned from the biggest online poker platform in the world. If you will, please a moment of silence for our fallen friends. It's just so sad. Why? Why? It was too soon. I mean, if this could happen to an anonymous online pro from Belarus, it could happen to anyone. That's right, everyone. GGPoker has banned anyone playing 2550 plus unless you are specifically invited. And the invite list is primarily people that have lost money playing poker and notable poker pros that have audiences that they're trying to promote and or they believe can bring people into their platform. So basically, you have to either be bad at poker or named Fedor, Elky, or Jungle Man. Easier to get into that first category than the second. Taking a step back for a moment, GGPoker has done a few things over the years that have aggravated the professional poker playing community, namely increasing the rake to levels that were very difficult to beat. In fact, there have been a couple of rake raises over the years that have made the games very tough to beat, considering that normally at high stakes, the big blinds per 100 in rake is quite low, but on GGPoker, that number is actually fairly high, which in fact is not better.
Actually,
I guess it's better for the card room, so I'm not sure which side to take anymore. I'm a bit conflicted out. Brought to you by Lodge Card. No, I'm kidding. Okay, let's get back to the story. Back in April of 2023, GGPoker increased the rake substantially. I actually think we covered this story here on the channel. I could be wrong because my memory is fleeting as I get older. However, there was a quite large rake increase where we saw the average rake at for example, 2550 go from 4 big blinds to 7. A roughly 67-75% increase in the rake at high stakes. And the highest stakes tend to have some of the best players in the world, meaning you have to compete versus some of the top players to ever play the game and overcome 7 big blinds per 100 in rake. Now, for those of you who do not know much about rake, aka anyone in Texas, because we do not rake in our games, come on down to Lodge Card. No, okay, sorry. It's hard. It's hard to not do it. Anyway, for those of you that don't know about win rates in poker, typically speaking, a good big blind per 100 win rate in a 6-max cash game online is typically around 4-ish after rake. The top players might win at 5, 6, 7. As you play short-handed games, maybe you could even get higher than that. The break-even grinder types looking for rake back will be around 0, 1, 2. But usually about 4 big blinds per 100 is pretty good, assuming that there's a few big blinds per 100 in rake. When you're paying 7 big blinds per 100, all of a sudden, even a decent to moderately good player, you're actually going to be losing after the rake. So this change absolutely destroyed the ability for regulars to be able to win in those highest stakes games. When news of this rake increase broke, the high stakes poker players gathered together and managed to successfully boycott in order to lower the rake. Ultimately, according from this tweet from George, seems like a nice enough fellow, hope this information is correct. Apparently, the net result was a 90% rollback of the rake increase in 4+ handed games, a decrease in rake 3-handed plus heads up, and GG promises to consider further trials of decreases 3-handed. I love that. That's an amazing note. Yeah, how about we make a deal where I promise to consider something? Guys, I promise. I'm going to think about it, for sure. By the way, rake's going up, but I'm going to think about it. Trust me on this one. I'm thinking about it right now. I'm thinking about something happening right now. I hope they got that legally binding. I'd love to see a document that says, I promise to think about the thing that you don't like, but I can do either thing, but I promise to think about it. Signed, me. Seriously. Since this change, there have been a number of other rake increases. I'm seeing rake increases in other areas. I don't know, and I don't want to go through the internet to see what GGPoker raised the rake of in all these games. Maybe they lowered it. I'm not entirely sure. But what I can say is that the company is aggressive in ensuring that they maintain revenues from the players. And then they also use that money aggressively for large tournaments, large promotions, and then kickbacks to the players losing the most money. A model that frankly might actually be the best model in order to grow an online poker site, as they are clearly the largest poker site now in the world. But this step takes it to a whole new level. Now, unless you are selected, handpicked by GGPoker to play in those high stakes games, you are not going to be able to. And the list mainly seems like notable pros and losing poker players. Just how is the online poker community reacting to such an aggressive change? It's about what you would expect. Over on 2plus2 Poker, yes, a forum that still exists, there is a thread, GGPoker killing the high stakes poker dream, question mark. But the outrage isn't contained just at 2plus2. It's also happening over on Twitter, where media personality and GGPoker rake enthusiast aficionado George once again coming in hot with another tweet here saying, seems like GGPoker are making 5K plus invite only, VIP only from November 8th. Quite sad, online poker used to be the real meritocracy. If you thought you were the best, you could sit the lobby versus the best at the highest stakes. Now it will be live poker style politics. Make no mistake, this is the worst situation high stakes pros online have seen in a long time. Your options for high stakes poker are dwindling. PokerStars volumes down, ACR volumes down, GGPoker's volumes up, lots of good games, but you can't play. This is a tough situation for those that play high stakes online, and it's definitely going to hurt your future EV. There are two questions that have to be asked. Question 1, why is this happening everywhere? And question 2, what should be done about it, if anything? Let's jump into question 1. The reality of poker is that it's a business, and online poker sites want their bad players to survive for as long as possible so that they can make more in the long run. That is fair for them as the business to do so. However, they also should be trying to create a healthy enough ecosystem where players can win, because regulars do serve a key role of the online poker ecosystem in that they are high volume, will play any games that players want to play, and they create game liquidity. In fact, game liquidity is one of the most, if not the most important things when it comes to poker. The more people you have with more money in a group together, the number of gains that you get becomes exponential. That's why we often see poker online become winner take all. Right now, GGPoker seems to be winning that battle, but before we did see PokerStars at its peak have a vast majority of the online poker players. Now, yes, because there are so many people around the world that want to play poker, we'll still have room for small to medium sites, but the point remains, it's a winner take most, at least industry, and by letting your bad players survive longer, you are able to make more money as the website itself. Now, there is a delicate balance here because the website does not really care that much if people can play professionally or play for a living, even though it's a skill-based game. Their business model is not to ensure the winners can make money. And so this is where we see things butt heads. The site wants pros because they want more volume, they want games to run, but they also don't really want pros because if they're winning money off the bad players can lose less to the house. So we have three parties here that all want different things. The house wants to win the most money in the long run by no one really winning money. The recreational players, they want to play poker more often, they want to get more comps back, they want to play in big events, and they want to have a fun experience playing in softer games. And the good players, they want to win money beating the bad players. So we have this dynamic that creates some issues, and I think that's why we've seen it so much in live poker streams. We've seen it so much in live poker rooms. We see it now on online poker rooms. We see it in poker tournaments. Like, for example, when Triton does events you have to be invited to. The point is, over time, the bad player portion of that triangle has realized they have a lot more power than they have historically been using, and they are starting to wield that power. 15, 20 years ago, they weren't organized, they didn't understand the dynamic, and they basically got kind of taken advantage of by the other two parties. Now, bad players realize they get a say in where they're willing to lose their money. Let's think about this change from GGPoker's perspective. Yes, their bad players will now be able to play longer and games will be easier, but they also lose the play of many players on their site. In theory, I'm sure GGPoker would want the most games going at the most times possible for the longest time. When you're banning a bunch of players, you reduce that. So while perhaps you get the advantage of now games running more often with those certain players, with your weak players, the overall net number of games goes down. So I would be interested to hear if GGPoker really wanted to make this change. Perhaps the casino elements where these players could lose elsewhere makes the equation a bit different. But generally speaking, as a poker room operator, I can say myself, we would want to have the most games possible. And I can give you a case story from the lodge that we had to deal with something similar to this. A year and a half ago, the lodge had a 5, 10, 20 game that ran every day. Anyone could go play. That sounds super fair and awesome. But predictably, what happened was over time, better players heard about this game and it became more and more pro heavy. By the end of the game, there were just a few recreational players and tons of pros that were all beating these players. Ultimately, what happened is what you would think. The recreational players either didn't like the game anymore or they lost their money and the game ended. For the next 6 to 9 months, these games moved to other venues around town, home games, other card clubs, things like that, because these players didn't want to be hunted. They didn't want to lose money to these great players playing in this open game. And so what I realized as I looked at what happened was maybe it's ideal for any member to be able to play in this game, but the reality is recreational players have a voice and they're wielding it more aggressively. So as an operator, it's more important that you're able to make sure that games go than it is ensuring that everyone gets to play in these games. And I want to give you my personal story on this because I think it makes a lot of sense. When I played online poker, I got to the top of heads up. And then when I tried to play live poker, I quickly found I wasn't invited. And we all know how that can feel. Jokes aside, I was simply known for being too good to be able to play in any game. I don't think I got invited to any game. I couldn't get into anything in any of the rooms. I was effectively permanently banned from anything, which is why I played tournaments and won a few bracelets there. And this is why I've played, I started a stable, backed a bunch of players to play, and I started to grow out of a role as a player because I could not play. And while I was very frustrated and upset with that at the time, I ultimately realized that the people in the game get to choose. And so I created my own ways of funneling my efforts. I started a YouTube channel to make videos like this. I'd never made a YouTube video before. I started a training site, Upswing. I started a card room. All this stuff. I did all of these things to make myself valuable to maybe one day be able to play in these games, but also to make myself less reliant on the need for these people to let me into their games. So this is not a story that people really want to hear. And it's not ideal for the poker, quote unquote, dream. Because certainly the poker dream is dead today compared to the dream 15, 20 years ago. We still do have forms of poker anyone can play. But the reality is that losing players get to pick who they lose to. And if they don't want to play with you, then they really do have that right. So should this be happening? Maybe you could argue yes. It sucks. I get it. For the high stakes poker guys, when I went through that, it was brutal. I had to figure out other ways to make money. I had to basically change my career. But I figured it out and I grew from it and it let me expand. It let me grow. It gave me new challenges. So maybe on one hand, it does suck to lose that income today. And we should appreciate the people that are really good at things. But the reality is when a game is for money, the people losing that money get a voice. And as it stands today, that voice is becoming louder. Thank you for tuning in today. I will see you guys again soon. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? What should happen here? It's a good question, and I'd love to get your input. Thanks for watching today. I'll see you guys again soon.